You've been handing your power to arrogant people your entire life, and you didn't even realize you were the one holding the leash. Every time you walked away from someone who made you feel small, you told yourself they were just stronger than you. They weren't. They were more fragile. The most dangerous people in your life all share one weakness: they need to believe they're extraordinary, and that need is the leash you've been too polite to pull. Their grandiosity is not their armor. It's the crack in the wall. And today, you're going to learn exactly how to walk through it. Here is the truth that most people will never accept. Being impressive is not the same as being powerful. The person who needs to be seen as brilliant, as exceptional, as untouchable, that person is not free. That person is chained to an image they can never fully control. And whoever controls that image controls them. Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago. Power is not about being the loudest voice in the room. Power is about knowing what people cannot stop themselves from reaching for, and standing between them and it. You've been taught that confident people are strong. You've been taught that the person who talks the most, who dominates the conversation, who radiates certainty, that person has something you don't. Let me reframe that for you. The louder the grandiosity, the deeper the hunger. People who genuinely know their worth don't need to perform it. They don't need an audience for their competence. The performance itself is the tell. And you've been watching the performance and feeling intimidated, when you should have been watching the performance and taking notes. Here are 7 dark principles for turning someone's grandiosity into the trap you set. Number 1. Their ego is not their shield, it is their thumbscrew. Every person you will ever meet carries a weakness they cannot hide. Usually it is an insecurity. Sometimes it is an uncontrollable emotion. But most often, with the people who cause the most damage in your life, it is a need. A need so deep they probably don't even recognize it themselves. The need to be extraordinary. The need to be seen as exceptional. The need to believe they are not just another person in the crowd but someone the rules were written for. This is what I call the thumbscrew, and once you find it, you can turn it in any direction you want. The arrogant boss who needs to feel like a visionary. The partner who needs to feel like the smartest person in every room. The friend who always has a story that tops yours. These are not confident people. These are hungry people. And hunger makes people predictable. Most people see arrogance and they shrink. They think, this person is above me. Strategic people see arrogance and they lean in. They think, this person just showed me exactly where their vulnerability lives. The grandiose person has essentially handed you a map of their insecurities and labeled it in bold letters. Everything they brag about is something they're terrified of losing. Everything they emphasize about themselves is something they fear no one would notice without the emphasis. Their performance is their confession. So stop being impressed. Start being observant. When someone goes out of their way to demonstrate their importance, do not hear confidence. Hear need. That shift in perception alone changes every dynamic you will ever walk into. You stop reacting to their performance and start reading their script. Number 2. Identify the specific self-image they are protecting, because it is never what you think. Grandiosity is never generic. It is always precise. The person who needs to feel powerful is different from the person who needs to feel brilliant, and both are different from the person who needs to feel desired. You cannot exploit what you cannot name. So your first job is to name it. Here is how you do it. Listen to what they repeat. People circle back to the same themes over and over, and those themes are the architecture of their self-image. The person who keeps mentioning their accomplishments, even in unrelated conversations, they need to feel accomplished. The person who keeps referencing their intelligence, who corrects people, who needs to be the one with the answer, they need to feel brilliant. The person who keeps hinting at their connections, their access, their proximity to important people, they need to feel significant by association. And here is the subtle part. The self-image they protect is almost always the opposite of what they secretly fear about themselves. The person who needs to feel brilliant is terrified of being ordinary. The person who needs to feel powerful is terrified of being irrelevant. The person who needs to feel desired is terrified of being invisible. Their grandiosity is a monument built over a grave, and the grave is the thing they cannot face about themselves. You need to become a reader of people in the truest sense. Not a casual observer. A reader. Someone who looks past the surface and sees the machinery underneath. When someone speaks, do not just hear their words. Hear their need. Ask yourself, what is this person trying to make me believe about them? Because the answer to that question is the thing they most desperately need to believe about themselves. Most people listen to respond. Strategic people listen to decode. And once you have decoded someone's self-image, you hold something more valuable than their trust. You hold the blueprint of their emotional architecture. You know which walls are load-bearing and which ones are decorative. You know where the structure is solid and where it is hollow. And you know exactly where to apply pressure and where to apply praise. Number 3. Feed the image, but never for free. This is where most people get uncomfortable, and I need you to get past that discomfort right now. You have been trained to think that feeding someone's ego is weak, that it is fawning, that it makes you a sycophant. That training is exactly what keeps you powerless around people who understand this game better than you do. Feeding someone's inflated self-image is not weakness. It is strategy. It is the difference between handing someone a gift and placing a leash around their neck. The difference is in the method and the intention. A sycophant gives praise because they need approval. A strategist gives praise because they need access. One is begging. The other is fishing. You are fishing. Here is how you do it correctly. You do not offer generic compliments. Generic praise is obvious, and grandiose people are highly sensitive to anything that feels insincere, not because they value authenticity, but because their self-image is so specific that anything off-target actually threatens it. You must be precise. If the person needs to feel brilliant, you do not say you're so smart. That is amateur. You say something like, the way you framed that problem is something I would not have seen. You make the praise specific, you make it feel earned, and you make it about something they genuinely value about themselves. And here is the critical part. You do it sparingly. If you feed someone's ego constantly, the praise becomes inflation. It loses value. They start to expect it, and expectation kills leverage. You want them to feel the praise, remember it, and then feel its absence. The absence is where the dependency grows. When you give someone a taste of being seen exactly as they need to be seen, and then you pull back, just slightly, just enough, they start reaching. And a reaching person is a controllable person. Most people give their attention freely and wonder why no one values it. Strategic people give their attention like currency, in measured doses, always at a price the other person doesn't realize they're paying. You are not feeding their ego. You are installing yourself as the vendor. And when you are the only person who truly sees them the way they need to be seen, you become irreplaceable. Not because you're the best. Because you're the most accurate. Number 4. Watch for the mask slipping, because it always does. No one can sustain a grandiose performance indefinitely. The mask always slips, and when it does, you see the real architecture underneath. Most people miss these moments because they're too busy reacting to the performance. You need to be watching for the cracks. Here are the signs. When a grandiose person is challenged, even subtly, watch their reaction. The confident person absorbs the challenge, considers it, and responds with composure. The grandiose person overreacts. They might attack. They might dismiss. They might escalate. But they will not simply absorb, because the challenge is not just a disagreement, it is a threat to the self-image, and threats to the self-image are threats to survival. Watch what happens when they are not the center of attention. The grandiose person cannot tolerate being sidelined. If the conversation moves away from them, they will find a way to redirect it. They will tell a more dramatic story. They will make a bolder claim. They will create a disruption. The need to be the focal point is not a personality trait. It is a compulsion, and compulsions are exploitable. Watch what happens when they receive criticism, even constructive criticism. The grandiose person does not process criticism the way other people do. They do not evaluate it. They experience it as an attack, and they respond to it as an attack. They might counterattack. They might reframe the criticism as a reflection of the critic's inadequacy. They might withdraw and punish you with silence. But they will not simply say, "Thank you, I'll consider that." Not genuinely. Not without a performance of humility that itself is a form of grandiosity. And watch what happens when they fail. This is the most revealing moment of all. Success hides the grandiose person's fragility. Failure strips it bare. When a genuinely confident person fails, they feel disappointment, they regroup, they learn. When a grandiose person fails, they feel annihilated. They cannot own the failure because owning it would shatter the self-image. So they externalize it. Someone else is to blame. The circumstances were unfair. The timing was wrong. They were sabotaged. The failure is never theirs, because if it were theirs, the entire structure of their self-concept would collapse. These moments are gifts. Every time the mask slips, you see something they desperately do not want you to see. And every time you see it without reacting, without commenting, without flinching, you gain ground. You file it away. You do not use it immediately. You do not confront them with it. You simply hold it, quietly, the way a chess player holds a captured piece, not to display it, but to know what the board looks like without it. Number 5. Become the sole source of the validation they cannot live without. This is the deepest move, and it requires the most discipline. You are not just feeding their ego occasionally. You are positioning yourself as the person who understands them in a way no one else does. You are becoming the mirror that shows them the version of themselves they need to see. This works because grandiose people are surrounded by people who either compete with them or fear them. Their competitors challenge their self-image. Their admirers reinforce it but shallowly, with praise that is too generic, too frequent, too transparently self-serving. What they almost never encounter is someone who sees them with genuine precision, someone who can name exactly what makes them exceptional in a way that feels true, not performative. That someone is you. And here is why this is so powerful. When you become the person who accurately reflects their self-image back to them, you become essential. Not because they like you. Not because they trust you. Because they need you. Without your mirror, their self-image has no confirmation. And without confirmation, it begins to wobble. Grandiosity without validation is just delusion, and delusion is unstable. They need someone to confirm the story they tell themselves, and you are going to be that someone, on on your terms. The way you do this is almost invisible. You make observations, not compliments. Instead of saying you're the most capable person here, you say something like, I've noticed that when you're in the room, decisions get made faster. You're not praising them. You're observing them. And observations feel more real than praise because they are specific, they are evidence-based, and they do not sound like flattery. They sound like recognition. And recognition is the drug that grandiose people cannot refuse. Over time, you calibrate. You learn exactly which observations land and which ones don't. You learn which aspects of their self-image are load-bearing and which are decorative. You learn what happens when you withhold, not cruelly, not obviously, but with the natural rhythm of someone who is not always available, not always watching, not always reflecting. And in the gaps you create, they reach for you. They seek you out. They bring you into their confidence. Because you are the one person who makes them feel real. This is not manipulation in the way most people think about manipulation. This is something more precise and more powerful. You are not forcing them to do anything. You are creating a dynamic in which they voluntarily orient themselves around you. You are the North Star of their self-concept, and they do not even realize they've been navigating by you. Number 6. Master strategic silence, because silence is the most underrated weapon in your entire arsenal. Everything we have discussed so far, identifying the self-image, feeding it precisely, watching for the mask slipping, becoming the sole source of validation, all of it is amplified or destroyed by one variable. Your silence. Or your lack of it. Here is what most people do not understand about grandiose individuals. They are constantly scanning for reactions. They are monitoring the room. They need to see the effect they are having on people, because that effect is the evidence that their self-image is real. If they speak and people are impressed, the self-image holds. If they act and people defer, the self-image holds. If they enter a room and the energy shifts, the self-image holds. But if they speak and the response is ambiguous, if the reaction is delayed, muted, or simply absent, the self-image wobbles. And a wobbling self-image is a reaching self-image. Silence creates ambiguity. When you do not react the way people expect, you introduce uncertainty. And uncertainty, for a grandiose person, is intolerable. They will move toward the source of uncertainty to resolve it. They will try to impress you harder. They will try to draw you out. They will seek your reaction because your reaction is the confirmation they need. And every move they make toward you is a move that gives you more information, more leverage, more control. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the power of composure, about the strength of the person who is not moved by external events. He understood something that most people still do not. The person who reacts least controls the most. Not because silence is inherently powerful, but because reaction is inherently revealing. Every time you react, you show your hand. Every time you stay composed, you keep your cards hidden. And the grandiose person, who is already desperate to read the room, will fill your silence with their own projections. They will tell you exactly what they fear, exactly what they need, exactly where their vulnerability lies, all without you saying a word. So when someone is performing their grandiosity for you, try this. Do not nod. Do not smile. Do not rush to validate. Simply listen. Look at them. Let the silence sit for a moment after they finish speaking. Then respond with something measured, something that neither confirms nor denies what they just presented. Something like, "That's an interesting way to think about it." Or, "I'll have to sit with that for a while." These responses are not rude. They are not hostile. They are simply not the validation the grandiose person was fishing for. And in that gap between what they expected and what they got, you just took control of the interaction. Most people fill every silence because silence makes them uncomfortable. Strategic people create silence because silence makes others revealing. The grandiose person cannot tolerate a vacuum. They will rush to fill it. And what they pour into that vacuum is exactly what you need to hear. Number 7. Never reveal that you see through them. This is the principle that protects all the others. Everything you have learned in this video, every technique, every observation, every strategic move, all of it is useless if you let them see you doing it. The moment a grandiose person suspects that you understand their architecture, that you see the hunger behind the performance, that you have been mapping their vulnerability while they thought you were simply impressed, in that moment, everything shifts. They will not thank you for your insight. They will destroy you for it. Because you have seen the thing they cannot afford to be seen, and that makes you a threat to their survival. Grandiose people do not respond to being exposed with gratitude or self-reflection. They respond with annihilation. They will rewrite the narrative. They will cast you as the villain. They will marshal their forces, their charm, their influence, their ability to command a room, against you. And they will do it with a conviction that is terrifying, because in their mind, they are not attacking you. They are defending themselves from a threat to their identity, and there is no force more ruthless than a person defending the story they tell about who they are. So you never show your hand. You never hint that you understand the game. You never let a knowing look cross your face. You never make a comment that suggests you see beneath the surface. You play the role of the person who is impressed, who is engaged, who is perhaps slightly intimidated, all the things they expect you to be. And while you play that role, you quietly, calmly, systematically hold every piece of information you have gathered, every observation you have made, every moment the mask slipped. You hold it like a weapon you never intend to fire, not because you are peaceful, but because a weapon you never fire is a weapon that never loses its power. The threat of what you know is more powerful than the use of what you know. As long as they do not know what you know, you have options. You have flexibility. You have time. The moment you reveal your understanding, you have a war. And wars are expensive, even when you win. This is the Machiavellian discipline that separates the strategist from the provocateur. The provocateur needs to be seen as clever. The strategist needs to be effective. The provocateur wants credit for seeing through people. The strategist wants the results that come from seeing through people without anyone ever knowing they were seen through. Credit is for egos. Results are for power. Now let me bring all of this together, because the 7 principles are not isolated tactics. They form a system. You identify the thumbscrew, the need to be extraordinary. You decode the specific self-image that thumbscrew is protecting. You feed that image with precision, becoming the sole source of validation that feels real. You watch for the mask slipping, collecting intelligence every time it does. You use strategic silence to create dependency and extract information. And through all of it, you never reveal that you see the machinery behind the performance. What you are building, piece by piece, is a position of invisible leverage. You are not the person who fights them. You are not the person who challenges them. You are not the person who competes with them. You are the person they orient themselves around without knowing why. You are the person whose opinion they value without knowing they value it. You are the person whose absence they feel without understanding what is missing. And all of that happens because you understood something that almost no one understands. Grandiosity is not strength. Grandiosity is hunger. And hunger can be fed, managed, and directed. Let me say something directly to you now, because I want you to hear this clearly. You have spent a significant portion of your life intimidated by people who were more fragile than you. You have walked away from conversations feeling small, wondering why someone else's confidence seemed so effortless while yours felt so hard-earned. You have replayed interactions in your head, analyzing what you should have said, how you should have held yourself, why you felt diminished by someone who had no actual power over you. That ends now. Not because I am giving you a technique that will magically transform you. Because I am giving you a lens that changes what you see. When you look at a grandiose person and you no longer see confidence but need, you stop shrinking. When you look at someone's performance and you no longer feel intimidated but informed, you stop reacting. When you understand that the person who needs to be extraordinary is the most ordinary kind of vulnerable, you stop giving away your power to people who were never qualified to hold it. The arrogance you have encountered in your life, from the boss who made you feel incompetent, from the partner who made you feel lucky to be tolerated, from the friend who always seemed one step ahead, none of it was strength. All of it was performance. And the performance was designed to create exactly the reaction you had. Intimidation. Deference. Self-doubt. Your reaction was not a personal failing. It was the intended output of a system designed to produce it. But now you see the system. And seeing the system is the first step to standing outside it. Here is what I want you to internalize. You do not need to outperform the grandiose people in your life. You do not need to be more impressive, more confident, more dominant. That is their game, and playing their game on their terms means you have already lost. Your game is different. Your game is quieter, more patient, more precise. Your game is about seeing what they cannot afford to show you and holding it with a composure that never wavers. The Stoics understood this. They understood that the person who is not moved by external events holds a power that no external force can match. Marcus Aurelius did not need to dominate rooms because he had already dominated himself. His composure was not passivity. It was the highest form of strategic awareness. He saw what moved people, and he chose not to be moved. And in that choice, he became untouchable. You are learning the same thing, but with a sharper edge. You are not just choosing not to be moved. You are choosing to understand exactly what moves others, and to hold that understanding with the discipline of someone who knows that the most powerful weapon is the one that is never drawn. Let me give you one more thing to carry with you. The next time you encounter someone who radiates grandiosity, the boss, the colleague, the partner, the acquaintance who walks into a room as if the room was built for them, I want you to do something different. I want you to look at them and ask yourself one question. What does this person need to believe about themselves? Not what are they saying. Not what are they doing. What do they need to believe about themselves in order to sustain this performance? That question will change everything. Because the answer is always the same in structure, even when it differs in content. They need to believe they matter more than they secretly fear they do. They need to believe they are seen the way they want to be seen. They need to believe the world would notice if they disappeared. And that need, that deep, aching, never fully satisfied need, is the thing you have been too afraid or too polite to see, because seeing it means admitting that the people who intimidated you were never as powerful as they appeared. That admission is not comfortable. It is destabilizing. It means you have to re-examine every interaction where you felt small and recognize that you were never actually small. You were simply standing in front of someone who was performing largeness, and you mistook the performance for reality. That mistake is over. Now, let me be clear about something. This knowledge is not permission to become cruel. It is not a license to exploit everyone you meet. The principles I have shared with you are tools, and tools are neutral. A scalpel can heal or harm depending on the hand that holds it. What I am giving you is the scalpel. What you do with it is a reflection of who you are. But here is what I will also tell you, and I want you to hear this without flinching. If you do not learn to see the architecture of grandiosity in others, you will continue to be controlled by it. Not because people are malicious. Because you are naive. And naivety in a world full of hungry performers is not innocence. It is vulnerability. The kind, humble, genuinely confident people in your life, the ones who do not perform, who do not need to dominate, who make you feel larger in their presence rather than smaller, those people are not the ones I am teaching you to handle. Those people are rare and valuable, and you should protect those relationships with everything you have. I am teaching you to handle the others. The performers. The hungry ones. The ones who have been feeding on your deference and calling it respect. Respect and deference are not the same thing. Respect is what you give to someone whose power you have genuinely assessed and chosen to acknowledge. Deference is what you give to someone whose performance you have mistaken for power. You have been deferring to people you do not respect, and you have been calling it wisdom. It is not wisdom. It is a habit. And habits can be broken. Let me bring you back to where we started, because I want this to settle into your bones. The most dangerous people in your life all share one weakness. They need to believe they are extraordinary. That need is not their armor. It is the crack in the wall. It is the thumbscrew. It is the leash you have been too polite to pull. And here is the antithesis I want you to hold, the single idea that everything in this video orbits around. Being impressive is not being powerful. Being liked is not being respected. Being feared is not being effective. The person who performs confidence is not confident. The person who performs superiority is not superior. The person who performs indifference is not indifferent. Performance is need. Need is leverage. Leverage is power. And power, held with composure and deployed with precision, is the thing that changes the trajectory of your life. You have spent enough time being impressed by people who were performing. You have spent enough time feeling small in rooms where you were the only person actually seeing clearly. You have spent enough time handing your power to people whose only qualification for holding it was that they asked for it louder than you would have. That chapter is over. Not because I say so. Because you now see what you did not see before. And you cannot unsee it. The grandiose person walks into a room and performs. You watch the performance and you no longer feel intimidated. You feel informed. You note the themes they repeat. You note the moments the mask slips. You note the reactions they cannot control. And you hold all of it quietly, with the composure of someone who has been training for this moment without knowing it their entire life. This is the ruthless art Machiavelli perfected. Not cruelty. Not chaos. Precision. The ability to see what people hide, to hold it without flinching, and to use it without revealing that you have it. The power of the person who is never the loudest voice in the room but is always the one who understands the room better than anyone in it. That art is now yours. Not as theory. As practice. Starting with the very next person who tries to make you feel small by performing their own largeness. So here is what I want you to do. Right now, not tomorrow. Not after you have thought about it. Not after you have processed it. Right now. Think of one person in your life who fits everything I have described. The performer. The one who needs to be extraordinary. The one who has been quietly taking your power by making you feel like you are not enough. Hold that person in your mind. And ask yourself the question that changes everything. What does this person need to believe about themselves? Answer it honestly. Answer it precisely. And then sit with the answer. Do not act on it yet. Do not confront them. Do not reveal what you see. Just hold it. Hold it the way a master holds a position on a board, patiently, silently, with the absolute certainty that the game has already changed, even though no one else at the table knows it yet. And if this shifted something in you, if something clicked into place that has been out of alignment for years, then go to the comments and write 4 words. I am untouchable. Not because you are arrogant. Because you have finally stopped being touchable. Because you have finally seen the leash and realized it was in your hand the entire time. Write it. Mean it. And then come back to this video when the next performer enters your life. Because they will come. They always come. And now, for the first time, you will be ready. Their grandiosity is the trap you set. Their need to be extraordinary is the leash you hold. The performance is the confession. And you are no longer the audience. You are the one who sees. Being impressive is not being powerful. Being liked is not being respected. And the ruthless art Machiavelli perfected, now it is yours.